Okay. Topics. It is half of what you guys are used to. So it's just renal phys and renal patho. Okay. In terms of questions, you're looking at give or take about 20 multiple choice and 1 essay. Okay. Now, because this is a shorter exam. Whoa, that was weird. I had some like weird feedback. That is on. Okay, because this is a shorter exam, you're only going to have 60 minutes. So that's the change there. Usually you guys had 75. So this one's just 15 minutes less.
What does that make the questions weighted at if we're losing all the like short answer and everything?
So typically each question is worth 2.6 points, if I did that correctly. Renal, the multiple choice are going to be weighted at 4.3. So let's see.
Okay.
Nope, that's the wrong operator. So 1.6 more.
Okay.
That means anything. The essay is still going to be worth 10 points. Okay, so I'll tell you guys the essay is worth 10 points. It's actually 44 points with the scaling, but it's just easier to talk about like the ones instead of decimals there. So yeah, okay. Questions about exam 5?
Any little hint for the essay question?
I thought I straight up already told you guys what the essay was going to be.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was what you brought it up in class.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I
cool.
straight up told you guys. Now, I'll give you another hint here, just because you were brave enough to ask for one. Your RAS pathway, there's only 8 parts to it. But there's a reason why I told you your essay is worth 10. What I would recommend, go over that pathway, no more than just the pathway, okay? I don't want you guys just memorizing like a list. Know what that pathway does. Okay, if you can keep in mind the big picture, you'll be able to get the other 2 points there. Fair?
Thank you.
Yeah. It's only because I have my metal t-shirt on. I feel like I'm in a giving mood.
I can't see what it is though.
It's Chelsea Grin.
Oh, nice.
Back in the day.
Chelsea Grin's from my hometown.
No way.
Yeah, Chelsea Grin and Lorna Shore.
That's pretty dope. All right. So today, my friends, we get into hormones. Now, with hormones, if you're looking at this kind of big picture wise, hormones is a big chunk. Okay, this lecture alone makes up 25% of the final. We'll talk a little bit more about the final here, probably next week. But in terms of your final, it is 50% endocrine, 50% cumulative. Endo being phys and patho. Okay, so this is going to be, again, 25%, give or take. Okay, now when we talk about endocrine, this lecture is going to be split up into 3 parts. First part is just like general stuff, how the different types of pathways work, and then we're going to jump into the actual hormones itself. Okay, so first part is going to be our warm-up. Messenger of the endocrine system. I'll just straight up tell you those are hormones. That's what we're getting into today. And how do hormones travel throughout your body?
In the blood.
In the blood. Now, what organs are part of the endocrine system? I'll tell you There are 9 organs we're going to be going over, 9 organs that you're going to be responsible for. Okay. What are those organs? Here's a list. Now, before you guys freak out here, we'll be changing this list a little bit. Okay. I would say don't even write anything down for this because you're going to see this slide again. Just kind of watch me kind of fill this slide out so you can kind of see what we're in store for. Okay. Hypothalamus, then we'll be talking about the pituitary, but we're going to split up the pituitary into the anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary. We'll talk about the pineal gland, thyroid, parathyroid. We will not talk about the thymus. Your adrenals, there's 2 levels to your adrenals. You have the cortex and you have the medulla. Now, again, don't worry about writing all this stuff down because you're going to see it again. Your cortex has 3 layers to it. The glomerulosa, the fasciculata, and the reticularis. Okay. We'll talk about the pancreas. We will not talk about the birds and the bees. Okay. Again, I'm sorry, Lita. You'll get it in an OB. All right. I didn't get the sex talk, so I'm not giving it to you. But again, that's just an overview. I'm going to recreate this slide here at the end of part 1, right before a break. So don't feel like you need to rush to write this down. Okay. Hormones, just kind of general stuff here. Cool. All right. So when we're talking about hormones, we need to talk about the different types of hormones. So these are the ways to kind of sort them, the different categories. Tropic hormones are hormones that target other endocrine glands and stimulate growth and secretion of a gland, i.e. tropic hormones are used to communicate between other endocrine glands. Okay. If we have one organ secrete hormones to another organ that makes hormones, that is a tropic hormone. Okay. Now let's kind of think about this. You need to talk to your organs. You need to talk to your organs. If you don't talk to your organs, what's going to happen? Take, for example, patients on bed rest. They're not talking to their skeletal muscle. What's going to happen to their skeletal muscle?
Atrophy.
Atrophy. And that's the idea here, that's that they stimulate growth and secretion. So tropic hormones are used to communicate between other endocrine organs, allows organs to grow and function. Kind of the idea of use it or lose it. Okay, so if I stop talking to my pancreas, if I stop sending tropic hormones to my glomerulosa, okay, they're going to atrophy. Okay, this second point right here, don't worry about it. We're going to get into more of it. That's why I'm saying like it's not a huge point to focus on. Okay. Okay. So tropic hormones target other endocrine glands. Non-tropic hormones target your muscles. Okay, take for example, growth hormone. Growth hormone causes your body to grow. That is non-tropic because we're targeting muscles, bones. Okay. Estrogen. Estrogen is a tropic hormone because it's used to communicate with other hormones or other organs with hormones. Okay. So you have tropic versus non-tropic. Another way to sort it is water versus lipid soluble. Okay. So water soluble hormones, they circulate unbound, i.e., can I dump water soluble hormones into my blood? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, these are very short acting responses, i.e. they don't last for more than maybe an hour. What's a hormone that dumps into your blood? Think of an example. What's a hormone that dumps into your blood with relatively short effects?
Epinephrine.
Perfect. Epinephrine. Okay. So highlighting this short effects because they only bind to the surface. They only bind to the surface. Versus lipid soluble hormones. Lipid soluble hormones, can they travel throughout the blood? But didn't you guys tell me that all hormones go through the blood? Uh-oh. So lipid soluble hormones actually travel in the blood as well, but I'm glad you guys shook your head because you understand fats, waters don't mix, right? Because these are lipids, they need to be bound to a carrier. Okay, basically they need a carrier that allows them to mix with the water. Oh, that was weird. Sorry, I thought somebody was stealing my car. So lipid soluble and water soluble both travel in the blood, work very differently. Lipid soluble has long lasting responses. We're talking about kind of like permanent changes. What kind of hormone do we release during puberty that has permanent changes?
Androgens.
Yes. How about I just do, you can do testosterone or estrogen. I was thinking of like growth hormone as well, right? You secrete growth hormone, you're growing. It's not like you're going to revert back. And these pass through the plasma membranes. Okay, so you have tropic versus non-tropic. Another way to sort it, water soluble versus lipid soluble. Okay. And a third way to categorize hormones. I'm sorry, guys, but bear with me on this one. Steroidal versus non-steroidal. Okay. Steroidal hormones enter the cell. What kind of hormones go right through the cell membrane and act on the inside of the cell? Look back, we've already kind of talked about them. What hormones go right through the cell's membrane and act on the inside?
The lipid soluble.
Lipid soluble. So what I'm getting at is steroidal hormones is another way to say lipid soluble. Okay, so steroidal and lipid soluble are just two different names for the same thing. Okay, so these are going to enter the cell and they're going to have long-term effects. Non-steroidal, you know, is water soluble. Okay. Anybody ever use hydrocortisone cream, like for itching? That's a non-steroidal medication. It's water soluble. You put it on your skin, it stays on your skin. Is that going to forever make you non-itchy? No, it'll come back, right? So that's what I'm saying is non-steroidal does not enter the cells. It only works on the surface receptors. Okay. So taking a look here, just visualizing it, your fat soluble hormone, what was another name for fat soluble hormones?
Steroidal.
Perfect. Okay, they phase right through the plasma membrane. How is it that this hormone can go right through the plasma membrane? I thought that's supposed to keep stuff out.
Because isn't the phospholipid bilayer a selectively permeable membrane?
Yes, and what is the phospholipid bilayer made of?
Lipids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's why your fat soluble hormones, hey, they're fat soluble. They can go through fat. They go into your cell and they bind to what's called a mobile receptor. Why is it a mobile receptor? Kind of think about the things inside the cell. Are they anchored down? No, things inside the cell just kind of float around. That's why we call it a mobile receptor. When it finally meets your mobile receptor, it's going to cause DNA transcription and translation. So if I have a steroidal hormone, a fat soluble hormone, that's going to go through my cell's membrane and cause DNA to be read. If I'm reading DNA, I'm making instructions. Are these instructions going to be long-term or short-term?
Long-term.
Exactly. So that's why your fat soluble, your steroidal hormones have a long-term effect. Growth hormone, for example. Water soluble, also known as non-steroidal. Okay, they only bind to the surface. Why can't your water soluble hormones go through your cell's membranes?
Because the phospholipid bilayer will repel the water.
Exactly. That's why they have to be bound to a surface and they need a secondary messenger. Secondary messenger, this is somebody on the inside, okay? This kind of plays a role when you guys start talking about HIV medications, but understand non-steroidal, you need somebody on the inside because the hormone itself can't pass through that barrier, okay? All right, so we're gonna be talking about just steroid hormones, the lipid soluble. What is the common building block here? Cholesterol. That's how your lipid soluble or your steroidal hormones can phase through, okay? And we kind of talked about it. Why do we need why is it called a mobile receptor model? Why is it a mobile receptor?
Because everything's just kind of floating around in the cell.
Perfect. The receptor floats around inside the cell. It is unanchored, untethered. Perfect. Okay. So here you're seeing just steroid hormone go right through, causing access to my DNA. Cool. Now, with your steroid hormones, here's a list of them. You do not need to know this list. Okay. I'm not going to ask you what's a steroid, like is epinephrine a steroidal or non-steroidal? I'm not going to do that. What's going to be more important is just knowing what the hormones do. Okay. Behold, they activate DNA transcription and translation. Did I have you write that down? Okay. Therefore, we see long-term effects. Okay. All right. So on the other side, non-steroidal or water soluble, the main ingredient here is going to be proteins / amino acids. And why do we need a second messenger when we're working with non-steroidal hormones? Why do we need a second messenger?
Because water is repelled by the cell.
Perfect. I'm going to say it's unable to enter the cell. Needs something on the inside to carry the message. Okay. And what kind of effects were we looking at with non-steroidal hormones?
Short term.
Perfect. So here, just showing you non-steroidal binds to the surface. Your secondary messenger, this is the thing that carries on that signal inside of the cell. Okay. So this slide here, don't really worry too much about it because your water-soluble hormones are the first messenger, which kind of makes sense. The hormones floating around in your blood. Your secondary messenger, these are the inside carriers. Okay. Cyclic AMP, if you remember that from phys, but I'm not going to test you on any of these specifically. Okay, again, takeaway points: water soluble, binds to the surface, fast acting. Okay. All right. So taking a look at this picture here, this hormone I circled, is that steroidal or lipid soluble, or steroidal or water soluble?
Water.
Water soluble. So if it's water soluble, notice how it's going right through the membrane though. If it's going right through the membrane, which one would it be?
Fat.
Yeah.
I honestly
Well,
didn't even look at the arrow. I looked at the way that they were facing, and I'm like, oh, it must be being repelled because it's faced weird.
That makes sense. How about that one then? Water
That one,
soluble, yeah?
yeah.
Perfect. All right. So those are the different categories. You have tropic, non-tropic, water or non-steroidal, lipid soluble, or steroidal. Okay. Now, talking about feedback mechanisms, these are the pathways. Okay, with a negative feedback loop, it is usually inhibitory. The idea here is to shut off the beginning steps. Okay. Its job is to maintain homeostasis. This is kind of an important idea here. Negative feedback loops, their goal is to maintain homeostasis. Okay. And they are much more common than positive feedback loops. I'm going to be honest with you guys. In terms of what I know, in terms of what I know for hormonal stuff throughout the entire body, I can only think of two positive feedback loops. One of them we can't even explain. Everything's practically negative. Okay. Positive feedback loop, on the other hand, is going to be stimulatory. Basically, the, let me say, goal here is to bring change quickly. It's to bring change quickly. Okay. The way I kind of visualize the positive feedback loop, this here is the snowball effect, where things just kind of keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. Should underline that. Okay, so this here is an example of a negative feedback loop. You're going to get to know this feedback loop very well. Okay. So in terms of this here, this is your thyroid pathway. We start with TRH, and I promise to explain what these abbreviations are. Okay. We start with TRH. This is a hormone that's made at your hypothalamus. Now, TRH is going to go to your anterior pituitary, stimulating TSH at the anterior pituitary. Shoot, I should scoot this over a little bit. I'm sorry. Now notice TRH is a hormone going to another hormone secreting gland. Therefore, TRH is what kind of hormone?
A steroid hormone.
It is steroidal. There's another one that it could be. Notice how it's targeting another endocrine organ.
Oh, the tropic or tropic, however.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a tropic hormone. If I don't secrete TRH, what will happen to my ant pit? It atrophies, exactly. Now TSH is going to go to the thyroid to make T3, T4. Okay. Now for your negative feedback loop, once you have T3, T4, this will inhibit TRH and TSH. So it will shut off the beginning steps. Okay, so let me kind of walk us through this a little bit here. Let's say, for example, I have lots of T3, T4. If I have lots of T3, T4, what effect will that have on my anterior pituitary and my hypothalamus?
Inhibits them.
Inhibits both of them. So we're going to see a drop in TRH. Oh God. Oh, my handwriting. A drop in TRH and a drop in TSH. Okay. Now, eventually I'm going to run out of T3, T4. Eventually I'm going to be low. If I run out of T3, T4, what's going to happen? What
It's-
hormone? Oh, so go ahead.
It's gonna stimulate the product. Well, TRH is gonna release to make more TSH, and it's just gonna continue.
Exactly. So we're going to increase TRH. Oop. We're going to increase TRH, which then will increase TS. Oh, God damn it. TSH. Okay. So the big difference there, if you have too much T3, T4, it shuts off both. That's the plus sign, shuts off both TRH and TSH. If you run out of T3, T4, it will cause us to produce TRH. When I make TRH, that's going to produce more TSH. If I produce more TSH, what happens to T3, T4 levels? T3, T4 goes up, yeah. Hypothyroidism, great question. With hypothyroidism, it's just a low T3, T4. Hypo meaning low, right? Now, the tricky thing, and we'll talk about hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. With hypothyroidism, there's, I think, 7 to 8 different hypothyroid disorders. So it can be different kind of for different people. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about it. Great question. But yeah. Okay, so that's your negative feedback loop. Again, what was my whole goal in this? What's my goal here?
Homeostasis.
Homeostasis. We want to keep a constant of T3, T4. All right, so this is one of the positive feedback loops. This is your positive feedback. Okay. So this is childbirth, okay? Baby's coming out. Baby's head starts pushing against the cervix there. That creates pressure. That stimulates nerve impulses to go to the brain to release oxytocin. Now, oxytocin, while yes, it makes you feel good, cuddle your pets, love your pets, it also stimulates uterine contractions. So oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions. If anybody has any experience in the OB field, we call oxytocin Pitocin. Pitocin is artificial oxytocin to help stimulate birth, right? So if I release oxytocin, my uterus starts contracting even harder. What happens to the pressure at the cervix?
It'll increase.
Increases, which causes me to release more,
Oxytocin.
which causes uterine contractions to go up. You guys kind of see how it feeds forward. This is your snowball effect. Because what's the goal here?
To have a baby.
Yeah, we need to have a change. We need to do something and we need to do it now. Anybody feel like being in labor for 3 weeks? No, we don't have the time for that. We need this to happen now. Okay. So that's the only positive feedback loop we'll mention. All right. So it says break time here. We're going to be getting into the details. I'm going to fill out this chart here and then we'll take a break. Sound good? Okay. Hypothalamus, your pituitary, you have your ant pit. You'll hear me call it the ant pit, the anterior pituitary, your post pit, posterior pituitary, pineal, thyroid, parathyroid, not the thymus. Adrenals, 2 layers. You have the cortex and the medulla. The problem is the cortex has 3 layers to it. The glomerulosa, the fasciculata, and the reticularis. You got the medulla, got the pancreas, and no birds and bees. Cuckoo. So those are the organs that we are going to be going through. I'm going to give you guys a heads up. This is very similar to renal in the sense that the first part is the hardest part and it gets easier as we go through it. Okay. Yeah. So take a little break. I will unlock the quiz before I completely forget. Let's say about 10 minutes. So 9:10, we'll pick back up again. Okay. Let me know if you guys have any questions or you need me to go back to any slides. So many doggies. Oh.
Hey, Brian. I have not a dog.
Oh, and we're throwing a snake into the mix. That's points for creativity.
This is white chocolate. She's my baby.
Oh, I messed up my sound settings. I can't hear you guys now. Okay, that should work now. Okay. Greg, you have officially the cutes. Those dogs are so cute.
Tilly just got some clothes. That was what we bought this week during the sales, was buying Tilly
Oh.
some new clothes that just came in. So she's got a
Oh.
new little jacket.
No, I wish my dog would be so nice.
Yeah, she's the only one
Lita-
that needs them.
No. Lita, what kind of snake is that?
She's like some kind of albino boa. I don't know.
Oh.
They told us the breed when we got her and I forgot promptly.
Oh, pretty risky putting her around your neck.
Nah,
Ooh.
she's chill. She knows
Until
I
she's
feed her,
hungry.
so she does actually need to get fed today.
Nice. Yo. Wow. All right. So I don't know if you guys remember, but a long time ago I hinted there were 2 times in this entire quarter I would ever recommend flashcards. It was with the anemias. Second time I'm ever recommending them, hormones. Okay. Now, if you've stood by me and you've taken a stand against flashcards, I got you. I got you. Just hang tight. Okay. So starting up, very top, we're going to start with the hypothalamus. Connecting the hypothalamus to the pituitary is this structure right here, the infundibulum. This is actually a pretty important structure for patho. I'm kind of hinting at a lot of things that'll happen. But the infundibulum, this is the physical connection. Physical connection between the hypothalamus and pituitary. Okay, so this little bridge is where we send hormones from the hypothalamus to the pituitary. Let's say, for example, we knock out this bridge. For some reason, this bridge is damaged. The infundibulum has a lesion. What would happen to communication to my pituitary glands?
There wouldn't be any.
There wouldn't be any. Therefore, what would happen? What would happen to my pituitary glands?
It would atrophy.
They would atrophy. And what happens to the hormones that they would have normally secreted if my pituitary glands begin to atrophy? Would I have more or less hormones?
Less.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of hinting at something, but keep in mind the infundibulum. Okay, very good. All right. So this slide, we're going to come back to, but notice your anterior pituitary, your antpit is filled with glands. It's all these like fun little confetti looking colors. Okay. But your postpit, the posterior pituitary, is filled with neurons. Okay. And again, we're going to come back to this so it makes a little bit more sense. Okay. So starting off with the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus secretes 7 hormones. These hormones here. Okay. For the hormones, you need to know the name and abbreviation. You need to know the organ of origin, and you need to know its action. Okay. So this is what I was talking about, like if you like flashcards, time to get to it. But if you don't like flashcards, I still got you. Okay. So those are the 3 things that you need to know about each hormone that we talk about today. The name / the abbreviation, what organ it comes from, and what does it do. Okay. So let's kind of get into it. So GnRH, that's the abbreviation. It is also known as gonadotropin releasing hormone. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. Now, a little bit of a key tip here. Anytime you see RH, that stands for releasing hormone. Okay. In terms of action here, gonadotropin releasing hormone causes you to release LH and causes you to release FSH. LH and FSH. That's what you need to know about GnRH. Comes from the hypothalamus. Gonadotropin releasing hormone causes a release of LH and FSH. Make sense? That's the extent of it. Okay. GHRH. So we know it's a releasing hormone. What could GH stand for?
Growth hormone.
Exactly. So growth hormone releasing hormone. 3 guesses on what growth hormone releasing hormone releases.
Growth hormone.
Yes. So what I'm getting at is it seems very daunting, but a lot of these are actually kind of pretty intuitive. Okay. TRH, We kind of talked about this one already in that negative feedback loop. This is thyrotropin releasing hormone. Thyrotropin releasing hormone. Does anybody remember in that negative feedback loop, we started with TRH, and what hormone did TRH cause the release of?
TSH.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. TSH. Okay. Next up is SS. This is somatostatin. Somatostatin. Okay. This one is going to inhibit growth hormone and inhibit TSH. Little bit of a side note here. This is the only hormone with dual inhibitory effects. Only hormone with dual inhibitory effects. Okay, this is the only hormone that's going to shut off two other hormones at the same time. Okay. Fun note, apparently you need to know this for MedSurg 1 because in MedSurg 1 this comes up. We use somatostatin in the emergency room to stop GI bleeds. For whatever reason, somatostatin is really good at stopping GI bleeds. Next up is CRH. This is corticotropin releasing hormone. Corticotropin releasing hormone. This causes the release of ACTH. Okay. PIH, IH, this is prolactin inhibiting hormone. Prolactin inhibiting hormone. Hey, guess what this does? It inhibits prolactin. Okay. Anybody want to guess what PRH stands for and does?
Prolactin releasing hormone
And what do you think it does?
releases prolactin.
Yahtzee. Prolactin releasing hormone. And this will increase prolactin. Okay. So those are the 7 hormones that we just talked about here. Okay, that's the hypothalamus. Now we're going to be talking about the anterior pituitary or the ant pit. Ant pit. These are going to be the 6 hormones that we're going to be talking about. Okay. Now, before we get into these, there's a question tied into this slide. Without, so kind of key point here, without hormones, the target glands will atrophy. With excess hormones, i.e. if you don't talk to your organ enough, it will atrophy. If you talk to your organ too much, it will hypertrophy. Okay. Hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the thyroid. What do we call that?
Hyperthyroidism?
Mm-hmm. Hyperthyroidism. And what do you think is going to happen to your thyroid? Is it going to get bigger, smaller, or stay the same size if you have hyperthyroidism?
Bigger.
It's going to get bigger. And what do we call that? Like kind of big old thyroid?
Goiter.
Yahtzee. Okay. So delicate balance here. You don't talk to your organs enough, they will atrophy. You talk to your organs too much, they will hypertrophy. You need to talk to it just right. Okay. All right. So your pituitary, your pituitary is split up into your antipit and your postpit. Here's your anterior pituitary. It is also known as the adenohypophysis. Adenohypophysis, not hypothesis, but hypophysis. You're not making an educated guess. Does anybody remember what adeno meant? Lymphoadenopathy?
Means gland. Oh,
Means, yeah.
sorry, Ashley.
No, you're good.
So your anterior pituitary is known as your adenohypophysis because of gland. Your posterior pituitary is known as your neurohypophysis. Nervous system. What cell makes up your nervous system?
Neurons.
Neurons. Okay. So I'm going to scroll back up here. I promise this will make more sense. This is what we were talking about. Your anterior pituitary is filled with glands. That's why it's known as the adenohypophysis. And your postpit is filled with neurons. That's why we call it the neurohypophysis. Okay, so just heads up, you might see like a random question that says adenohypophysis and not anterior pituitary. Okay, so be familiar with anterior pituitary, which you'll see it most of the time, but you might also see adenohypophysis or neurohypophysis. Okay. Your anterior pituitary has glands, and guess what? It releases its tropic hormones right into the blood. Makes sense. Your glands make chemicals, proteins. Those are your hormones. Neurons. What do neurons release?
Electrical impulses.
That's inside the neuron, absolutely. But once we reach the end, we're going to send what chemical out of the neuron?
Neurotransmitters.
Neurotransmitters. Okay. So while your anterior pituitary, your adenohypophysis sends hormones, this is going to send neurotransmitters into the blood. Now, just for kicks and giggles to relive the golden days, going all the way back to day one of Patho, when you guys started the quarter with hope and drive in your eyes. Slowly, it's given away to jadedness and callousness. I'm kidding, you guys are lovely. Anybody remember what we call neurotransmitters in the blood? It combines both words. Neurohormones. Okay. Neurohormones are just neurotransmitters in the blood. Usually neurotransmitters just go right to the adjacent neuron. Here we're dumping it into the blood to hit distant neurons. Okay. All right. So your anterior pituitary, here are your hormones. Your posterior pituitary, here are your hormones. We're going to go through them. So here, your anterior pituitary filled with glands, posterior pituitary just filled with neurons. All right, so starting off with the antpit, FSH. FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone. Okay. This is going to, it depends on one's sex. Okay, let's do females first. If females release FSH, this is going to increase estrogen. Versus males, this is going to cause spermatogenesis. Okay. So if a woman releases FSH, increases estrogen, males, they start making swimmers. LH is luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone. Again, with this hormone, it depends on male versus female. Okay. With luteinizing hormone, this causes the release of progesterone in females. If a woman is releasing progesterone, what's happening in terms of the menstrual cycle?
Ovulation.
Ovulation, yeah. The Easter bunny's coming, dropping some eggs. Hey, look, man, I don't explain that shit, not me. For dudes, it increases testosterone. Now, personally, for me, the way I remember this, it's kind of switched. One hormone causes the main hormone to be made in one sex, but then gamete production in the other. Okay. So I don't know if you guys can do you guys kind of see what I'm talking about there? Like FSH versus LH. Okay. TSH, that is thyroid stimulating hormone. So guess what? It helps stimulate your thyroid. If I'm stimulating my thyroid, what's happening to the size of my thyroid? Increase thyroid size and secretions. Main hormone that we're looking at is going to be T3, T4. Okay. ACTH, this is the longest one. Adrenoccorticothiotropic. Nope, not thyro. That's what I was thinking. Adrenocorticotropin hormone. Sorry. Adrenocorticotropin hormone. ACTH, adrenocorticotropin hormone. This is going to increase adrenal size and secretions. So ACTH actually targets your adrenal glands. It'll increase adrenal size and secretions. And there's a bunch of hormones that come from the adrenal. We'll leave it at that. Okay. Last two hormones that comes from your armpit, GH, growth hormone. Pretty straightforward, right? Increases growth. Now, if a person is growing, what is happening to their metabolism? Increasing or decreasing? Increases, yeah. Think about like teenagers during puberty. Oh dear God, can they eat? Increased metabolism of fats and carbs. And then PRL, this is finally prolactin. Prolactin. This is going to be for prolactin is for breast and breast milk development. Breast and breast milk development. Okay. Yeah, it's not very often you get to use boob in a lecture. Does anybody know, fun fact here, the type of bee, the only type of bee that can actually produce milk? Boobies. Yeah. Admit it though. 2 more weeks, you guys are gonna miss my dad jokes.
I totally realize now why my boyfriend liked you so much when you were his clinical instructor.
You guys are gonna miss it. All right. And 2 from the post bit here. Not too bad, I promise. No more dad. No dad jokes yet. ADH, we actually talked about ADH. In fact, this is on exam 5. What does ADH stand for? It works on your kidneys.
Anti-diuretic hormone.
Anti-diuretic hormone, nice. So anti-diuretic hormone isn't made at your kidneys. It's made in your brain. It's made at your post pit. Now, anti-diuretic hormone is made in your posterior pituitary. It goes into your blood and acts on which part of the nephron? A little bit of review here. Anti-diuretic hormone acts on which part of the nephron?
DCT.
Nice. So anti-diuretic hormone, increase water reabsorption at the DCT. Perfect. Oxytocin, kind of talked about it already. In fact, we actually kind of used it. Does anybody remember what we used oxytocin for?
Increase uterine contractions.
You got it. Increase uterine contractions.
This might be a dumb question, but like, does oxytocin cause the cramps that we feel when we have our period?
No, that's not a dumb question because I don't know the answer. I
Okay.
don't know. Sorry. I'm gonna so with the menstrual period or menstrual cycle, I'm gonna let you guys know, we still don't fully understand what the hell is going on there. Okay. So from a scientific standpoint, y'all women are complicated. Most of the month, everything is negative. That's a negative feedback loop. But when the period starts after ovulation, the switch flips and becomes positive. So my guess is maybe that's what causes the cramps, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to speak kind of out of my field here. But after 3-5 days of it being positive, it just goes back to being negative. That's the only other positive feedback loop that I know of in the body, and we don't even know why it happens. I mean, I can use commas. Would that be easier? Sorry. I said I was going to tone down the dad jokes. My bad. All right. So those were the anterior, posterior, and hypothalamus. Now it gets a little bit easier, okay? Your pineal gland. Pineal gland. The hormone you need to worry about here is melatonin. You guys have probably heard of melatonin, yes? I'm going to keep it simple. Melatonin helps. Actually, let me just save it for the next slide. Melatonin. This is going to help regulate your biological rhythm. Oh, yeah, there we go. Regulate biological rhythm, i.e. your circadian rhythm. So you guys might have heard of melatonin in terms of like it helps you go to sleep. It's actually used for so much more than that. I would love to talk your ear off about it, but it's freaking weird. Okay, we're gonna keep it simple. Just regulate your biological rhythms. Okay. Fun fact, and I promise no dad joke here. Fun fact, does anybody know the cycle of your circadian rhythm, how often it repeats? About 25 hours, just over 24 hours, which is weird. Earth rotates, that's 24 hours. We should be on a 24-hour circadian rhythm, yeah? But we're not, we're a little bit more. You know what planet has a 25-hour rotation?
Isn't it Mars or something?
It's Mars. Y'all, we are fucking aliens. Sorry, now I just like need to poof out the hair, just aliens. Okay, so talking a little bit about the thyroid now. When it comes to your thyroid, 3 hormones. First up, you have T4 and T3, okay? These are your thyroid hormones. These regulate your metabolic rate, okay? So if someone has a lot of T3, T4, what would you expect to happen to their weight over time? If somebody has a lot of T3, T4, would you expect weight gain or weight loss?
Gain.
If they have a lot of T3, T4,
Yeah, weight loss.
there you go. This is, again, if they have a lot of T3, T4, that's your hyperthyroidism. They have too much thyroid hormones. And you guys learned hyperthyroidism, weight loss. So again, T3, T4 controls your metabolism. The more you have, the higher your metabolism. Okay, so think about puberty. Would you expect a lot of T3, T4 or very little T3, T4 during puberty? Very high. So T4 is known as thyroxine. Sorry, you kind of need to know this name too. I'll never expect you to spell it, but it might be dropped in a question, okay? And T3 is that's a 3, iodothyronine. It's really fun to say. Triiodothyronine. T4 is more prevalent, i.e. you have a lot of T4 in your body right now, but it's less potent. Okay, so you have a lot of it, but it's not very strong because it's the precursor to T3. Okay, triiodothyronine is less prevalent, but much more potent. Okay. So again, if we increase T3, T4, that will lead to increased metabolism. Versus if we don't have T3, T4, that will decrease metabolism. And we're going to talk a lot more about hyper versus hypothyroidism when we talk about endocrine pathologies. Okay. The other hormone that comes from your thyroid is calcitonin. Calcitonin regulates calcium and bone density. Cool. It inhibits osteoclasts and stimulates osteoblasts. So a little bit of review here. Does anybody remember what your osteoclasts do?
Don't they break down bone?
They do. So osteoclasts, the way I remember this, the C, osteoclasts crush bone. Oop. That's the way I remember it. Osteoclasts crush bone, while osteoblasts build bone. Okay. So I try to avoid the term breakdown because that can be easily confused with blasts. So let's think about this. Calcitonin inhibits your osteoclast and stimulates your osteoblasts. If I'm releasing calcitonin, what am I doing?
Building bone.
You're building bones. What calcium does is it helps you build bones by decreasing serum calcium. Okay. You're taking the calcium from your blood and putting it into your bones. Okay. So this pathway, again, you guys have already seen it, but just recapping here. We have thyrotropic releasing hormone that comes from the hypothalamus. I'm going to release that to my ant pit to make TSH. This is going to cause, at my ant pit, cause me to release TSH to my thyroid, releasing T3, T4 at the thyroid. And once I have enough T3, T4, this will inhibit those two. So a couple of recap questions here. What kind of feedback loop is this? What kind of feedback loop is this?
Negative.
Negative feedback loop. So if I want to increase my metabolism, what do I need more of?
T3 and T4.
How will I get T3, T4?
TSH.
Yeah, yep, I will get it from TSH. And where do I get the TSH from?
TRH.
There you go. Okay. Because I finally end with more T3, T4, that's what stimulates my metabolism. All right, so recapping here with the thyroid, T4 is known as thyroxine. Thyroxine, more prevalent, but less potent. It is the precursor to T3. T3 is triiodothyronine. Less prevalent, more potent. Both of these control what aspect of the human body?
Metabolism.
Nice. Okay, control metabolism. Calcitonin, two effects there. It will inhibit the osteoclasts, stimulate the osteoblasts. Okay, that's going to cause me to build bone and decrease serum calcium levels. All right. One more organ, I promise, and then we're gonna have a break, okay? One more organ. This one's not too bad either. All right, we're gonna be talking about your parathyroid. Your parathyroid, para, next to. These are your little parathyroid glands. They're inside your thyroid, okay? Your parathyroid releases a very particular hormone called parathyroid hormone. Don't think about this too hard. Your parathyroid releases parathyroid hormone, okay? It is the antagonist to calcitonin. In physiology, what does an antagonist mean?
It does the opposite.
Nice, it does the opposite. I'm gonna say it kind of competes with. Okay, so this one instead stimulates your osteoclasts. What are we doing to our bones instead? Crush bone. And as a result, what will happen to serum calcium levels if you start activating too much parathyroid hormone? Up, down, left, right? It'll increase serum calcium levels. So this calcium is going to go somewhere. It's going to go into the urine. If someone has too much parathyroid hormone, what are they at risk for in developing in their urine?
Stones.
Kidney stones, Yahtzee. Okay. And you do not need to worry about this calcitrol. Okay. So PTH stands for parathyroid hormone. It's going to stimulate your osteoclasts. So heads up, calcitonin acts on both your osteoblasts and your osteoclasts. Parathyroid hormone only acts on your osteoclasts. Okay, so careful there. Stimulate osteoclasts is going to cause bone crushing, and it will increase serum calcium levels. Okay. All right. So here's where we're going to take a break before we jump into the pancreas. Almost there, guys. Almost there. The rest of the organs, there's not that much. I mean, it's like each organ has one or two hormones, so it's not bad, but we're a little past the halfway mark. Okay. Run around, get some energy going, get caffeine. Let's say like 10 minutes. We'll say like 10:03. We'll pick back up again. Okay. All right. Cool. All right, so hopefully we're going to be able to finish out this little bit here. Okay. All right, so pancreas. Talked about the pancreas already. We talked about how it has endocrine and exocrine. We talked about the exocrine secretions. That was for digestion, right? All of those enzymes go to the outside of my body. Now we're going to be shifting to talk about the endocrine. Those are your hormones. Okay. So two hormones that we're going to be talking about from the pancreas that are going to be really the only focus of conversation about the pancreas here. Alpha cells secrete glucagon. So this is the way I remember this: glucagon, alpha cells. Okay. Beta cells secrete insulin. Sorry, I have nothing for that. Other students have said, like, if you go alphabetical order, glucagon goes before insulin, if that kind of helps. But glucagon, the effect of glucagon is to increase your blood glucose levels, i.e. increase your dextrose, your blood glucose. Okay. So, question for you. When would I need to increase my blood sugar levels? When would I need to increase my dextrose?
If you hadn't eaten in like too long,
Absolutely. If you haven't eaten, i.e., what would be your blood sugar if you didn't eat in a while?
it'd be low. You'd have low blood sugar.
How do we say low blood sugar in Latin?
Hypoglycemia.
Yeah, perfect. So all of those answers are correct. I'm just going to say hypoglycemia, just because I'm lazy. Okay. So glucagon raises dextrose during hypoglycemia. Insulin, therefore, does the opposite. It will decrease dextrose. And when do we want to release insulin? During times of?
Hyperglycemia.
Yep. The day after you binge on all the Halloween candy. Okay. So this here is just showing that we are trying to maintain homeostasis. If your blood glucose is too high, you release insulin. Too low, you release glucagon. Therefore, what kind of feedback loop is this?
Negative.
Negative. Perfect. Okay. So insulin facilitates glucose uptake into the cells. Cool. This is going to allow the cells to grow and function. Okay. So you need insulin to bring food into your cells. Kind of hinting at some diabetes stuff there, but we'll just leave it very simple right now. Okay. Anabolic hormone, because hey, this is allowing the cell to grow. Okay. So what happens is insulin binds to the surface. We get somebody on the inside to exocytose our GLUT4 transporter to suck glucose into the cell. Therefore, question, what type of hormone is insulin? What kind of hormone is insulin if this is its action?
Fat soluble.
Say again?
Is it lipid soluble?
It's binding to the surface?
Oh, binding to the surface. I thought you said into the cell. Then water soluble.
Yeah, insulin's going to be water soluble. Its effects are inside of the cell. Sorry, didn't mean to confuse you on that one. Okay. Now this actually kind of play into, it's a fun fact, but it does play into like patho. We need insulin to bring these GLUT transporters to suck in glucose. Another thing that simulates insulin is muscle contraction. When you contract your muscles over and over again, this causes GLUT transporters to go to the outside to suck glucose in. So what I'm trying to say here is that muscle contraction actually has the same effect as insulin. Okay, so if I contract my muscles a lot, what would happen to my blood sugar levels? If I'm working out, what happens to my blood sugar levels? Yeah.
They drop.
So again,
They
Drop.
damn it, Ashley's. You guys have the same name, but you also need the same timing. Come on. I'm giving you shit. Yeah, they would be dropping. Thanks, Lita. Split the tie on that one. If I'm contracting a lot, that's going to cause glucose to get sucked in my cells. Okay. So, i.e., exercise will decrease your blood sugar levels. Just planting seeds there. All right, glucagon. Okay. Glucagon, its job is to increase dextrose or your blood sugar levels. Okay. Secretion from hypoglycemia. It stimulates glycogenolysis. So you guys know what lysis means? What am I breaking down?
fats, lipids.
Go to the Latin. Glycogenolysis. What am I breaking down?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having a rough day.
You're good.
It's
You're good.
glucose.
Yeah, I'm going to turn glycogen breakdown into glucose. Gluconeogenesis. What's happening there? So think Genesis like the Bible. In Genesis, the book, the first book, that's creation. What are we creating? Gluco?
Glucose.
Yeah, creation of new. That's the neo, glucose. Then lipolysis. Okay, Noe, this one would, this is the lipolysis, fat breakdown. Okay. So all this again here to raise the fuel in my blood. All right. So insulin, decrease dextrose. And which cell releases insulin?
Beta cells.
From beta cells. During hyperglycemia. Glucagon, increase dextrose, released from alpha cells during hypoglycemia. Okay. All right. So the final hump here, both figuratively and physically, we're talking about the adrenal glands. We're talking about the little humps, the little hats on your kidneys. Okay. With your adrenal glands, there's two layers to that. You have the adrenal cortex. Cortex is always the outer layer. Outer layer. And your adrenal medulla, medulla is the inner layer. Now, if we start talking about your adrenal glands, what hormone just instantly pops into your mind? What hormone do you guys probably know comes from the adrenal glands? The one it's most famous for?
Epi.
Yeah, epinephrine, norepinephrine. Absolutely. Epi, norepi. That comes from the adrenal medulla. Your adrenal cortex makes up 80% of the adrenal gland, i.e., the most famous thing the adrenal glands are known for is the smallest thing that they do. Okay, and we're going to elaborate on this here. So your adrenal cortex has 3 layers to it. Your adrenal cortex has 3 layers to it. The glomerulosa, the fasciculata, and the reticularis. How on earth will you remember this? GFR. Those are the 3 layers. Your glomerulosa being the outermost layer. Your reticularis being the most inner layer. Okay. Inner layer. Now, each layer secretes a category of hormones. Each layer secretes a category of hormones. We have mineral corticoids, glucocorticoids, and your weak androgens. Okay, so your glomerulosa messes with your minerals, i.e., it's salty. Your fasciculata messes with your glucose, i.e., your sugar, it's sweet. Okay, question for you. What is salty and then sweet? Don't say Sour Patch Kids. Those are sour and then sweet. Nice try though.
It's me. I'm salty first and then I'm sweet because I'm an
Oh.
asshole.
I heard meat. I'm like,
No,
wait, are you
me.
injecting like sugar into your steak? Salty and then sweet. All right, so how on earth are you going to remember this? This is how I remember this, okay? With your layers, you have GFR. For the category of hormones, first it's salty, then it's sweet. What am I talking about? Sex. What? No? Is that just a me thing? I mean, but hey,
Wait,
this is
what? Can you explain how sex would be salty?
it's just the way I remember it. I don't fucking know. People are gross.
Well,
When 2 people really love each other, okay? I don't know, y'all. If you come up with a better way to remember this, let me know, but that's how my mind works. Just bear with it. Finally, from each category, you need to know an example of each hormone. So your example mineral corticoid is aldosterone. Your example glucocorticoid is cortisol, and your example weak androgen is DHEA. Okay, so your adrenal cortex is kind of like an onion. There's layers to it. You need to know the layer, the category, and the example. Okay, all of these hormones are derived from cholesterol, which means all of these hormones are what kind of hormone?
Lipid soluble.
Nice, lipid soluble or steroidal. Okay. Growth and secretion are stimulated by ACTH. We talked about ACTH that increases your adrenal size and its functions, i.e. secretions. So taking a look at it, here's your 3 layers. Your zona glomerulosa. Zona just means zone. So your glomerulosa, your fasciculata, your reticularis, GFR. Okay. All right. So this slide here kind of shows us the pathway. Here we start with CRH. CRH, that was at the hypothalamus. So hypothalamus secretes CRH. That goes to the anterior pituitary to release ACTH. So big arrow there. Okay. Then that's finally going to hit your adrenal glands. Now be careful here. You guys remember aldosterone? When have we seen aldosterone before?
In like fluid balance with the kidney.
With the kidney, yes, it was used as a hormone in a very important pathway. What pathway?
The RAS.
The RAS pathway, the RASTA pathway, right? In the RASTA pathway, what hormone triggered the release of aldosterone? What hormone triggered the release of everything?
Renin.
Renin. So what I'm trying to say here, and this is why I can get a little muddy. Renin causes the release of aldosterone. And a little bit of review here. When do we release renin? What is the trigger?
Low blood pressure, right?
Hypotension. Very good. Okay. ACTH causes production of aldosterone. Okay, so the big difference there, renin causes you to actually release it. ACTH just makes you make it, i.e. you're making it, but you're not releasing it. Okay, so just be careful there. Okay. All right, so talking about your mineral corticoids, we're talking about it being salty. Aldosterone. Okay. Aldosterone has these effects, causes sodium uptake in which part of the nephron? Which part of the nephron receives signals from hormones?
DCT.
The DCT, nice. The DCT. Okay. But it also causes sodium retention with the loss of potassium. I'm not really going to be caring about this hydrogen right now. Okay. So again, aldosterone released with renin, but produced with ACTH. Okay. Cortisol. You guys are probably pretty familiar with cortisol, right? What do you guys know about cortisol? Nothing? Never heard of cortisol?
Release
it
when you're
cause
stressed the
Cushing?
fuck out.
Sorry, I heard somebody like freaking the fuck out, but also Haley, what'd you say?
I said, doesn't it cause like Cushing syndrome?
Yeah, it can cause Cushing's, absolutely.
It's when your body
Cortis-
is stressed, isn't it?
Yes, cortisol is released when your body is stressed. So let's use you for an example. Midway through week 9 of nursing school, how's your cortisol levels? Pretty high, right? So does this directly apply to you guys? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, it does. Now, when you become stressed, cortisol stimulates gluconeogenesis, increases blood sugar, making new glucose. Why? What are you trying to feed during times of stress? You're trying to feed the brain. Absolutely. That's what you guys are doing. Okay. Now, cortisol is also an anti-inflammatory. Athletes, has anyone ever received a cortisol injection? Okay. When I inject cortisol into a joint, that inhibits inflammation. I don't have inflammation, it shuts it off. But let's flip this back over to you guys. You have cortisol and a lot of it going through your blood right now. So do you have the ability to become inflamed right now?
Less likely.
Less likely. You are less likely to become inflamed. Now, is inflammation an important immune response?
Sure is.
So if you have a lot of cortisol and you are unable to become inflamed, means your immune system is lacking.
Okay.
Technically, we are all being immunosuppressed. So, do you know if you're sick right now? Less likely to know. So, like, realistically speaking, they say, I don't know who they is, but they say there's 2 professions that should never take a vacation: teachers and nurses. Because as soon as you guys get a vacation, as soon as we get to go on break, we stop releasing cortisol. If we stop releasing cortisol, what response comes back? If we stop releasing cortisol, what response do I get back?
Inflammatory response.
The inflammatory response. Exactly, Kendall. You know where I'm going with this. What do we all get to look forward to during break?
Yay, being sick.
Yay, being sick. Oh, hopefully not the Rona. Hopefully not that, but I'm like, maybe a mild cold. I'll take a mild cold. But yeah, so I don't know. For whatever reason, they say nurses and teachers. I was a fucking idiot and I just decided to try to do both. So we'll see how it goes. Now, on top of that, I'm pretty sure they didn't tell you that during orientation that you could expect being sick during break, right? On top of that, growth suppression. That's weird. Why? Because cortisol decreases metabolism. Oh boy. So you're telling me we all have a bunch of cortisol, we all get to look forward to being sick during the holiday, and what do we get to expect with nursing school? With decreased metabolism.
Probably chubbing up a little bit.
Weight gain. Did Jeff or Kelly tell you anything about this here? Welcome to nursing school, y'all. All right, dude. Shit sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Cortisol is great for emergencies, but it's not good for long term. Okay. So this is just a PSA. Take time to do things that make you happy. Do things for you. Okay. Yes, we're all stressed out. Yeah. We're all stressed out. We're all going to be, gaining weight, but you can help reduce cortisol release by doing things that make you happy. So just, hey, FYI, please, little self-help goes a long way. Take care of yourselves before you try to take care of other people, yeah? So, yeah. And it also, fucks with your sleep. And, oh yeah, puts you at risk for osteoporosis. Take care of yourselves, please. Okay. But you don't need to worry about the sleep and the bone matrix stuff. Really, cortisol, release of stress, immunosuppression, decreased metabolism. All right. Last one here, DHEA. These are your weak androgens. Okay. Basically, DHEA is converted into peripheral tissue, blah, 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 blah. Let me say DHEA is the precursor for the opposite sex hormone. Opposite sex hormone, i.e. females. Females plus DHEA. What is the main female associated hormone? I think so. I think I saw Alexis whisper it. Estrogen, yeah. You guys, when you release DHEA, you convert that into testosterone. Males secrete DHEA and convert that into estrogen. So question, why? Why do you guys need some testosterone? Why do I need some estrogen? Why do you guys need a little testosterone, and why do me and Greg need estrogen?
I'm just gonna guess negative feedback loops.
Yeah, it's kind of along those lines there. I'm going to say to balance, and that's what your negative feedback loop there, to balance out the main sex hormone. Okay. So DHEA is used to help balance out your main sex hormone. Okay. The last structure here is your adrenal medulla. Adrenal medulla. So now we're talking about the inside of the adrenal gland. 3 names for it. Sorry. Chromaffin cells and pheochromocytes. Same cells. 3 names for the same cells. This is what's your epinephrine. Fight or flight. You guys know about it. I'm not going to really worry about the other stuff there. Okay. So, taking a look at this, a little bit of a recap here. Your 3 layers, glomerulosa, fasciculata, reticularis. How will you remember the 3 layers?
GFR.
GFR, yeah. Okay. Then the category of hormones. First it's salty, then it's sweet. I don't know. Some people have weird sex. Aldosterone. Aldosterone causes sodium reabsorption. Now, if I am reabsorbing sodium, what else am I reabsorbing?
Woulda.
Wood. Was that like a far like that? That's gotta be like East Coast accent, right?
New Joy.
Sodium. Joyzy. Just remember big. Give me my big. And then we have potassium secretion at the DCT. Okay. Cortisol. released with stress. And what effects do we get to look forward to with cortisol?
Sick, fat, and tired.
Getting fat and tired. How about I say anti-inflammatory and decreased metabolism. Okay. DHEA, this is that precursor to sick, fat, and tired. Precursor to opposite main sex hormone. Okay. All right, and finally, norepi, epi, just keep it simple, fight, flight, and just because I'm a nerd, freeze. All right, so at this point right here, I need you guys to take a leap of faith with me. I need you guys to just let go of the wheel, let Jesus take the wheel, okay? This is going to be an overview here. Now, what I'm saying here is do not freak out. Do not freak out and do not try to write all of this down. Okay, I just want you to kind of use this as just a way to kind of help solidify a lot of the ideas that we talked about. Again, please do not be preoccupied writing this down. Wink, wink, I got you. So just let me do my thing, okay? So your hypothalamus today, we talked about 7 different hormones. We talked about GnRH, okay? We talked about GHRH, okay? We talked about somatostatin, TRH, talked about PRH, PIH, and we talked about CRH. Those were the 7, okay? Now, these hormones up here, they go and talk to the ant pit. Therefore, question, all 7 hormones, they're going to talk to the anterior pituitary. What kind of hormone are they?
Tropic.
Tropic hormones. Okay, GnRH causes LH and FSH. GH. No, I messed that up. Yeah, growth hormone. Then we have TSH, PRL, and ACTH. Now, why did I kind of put it in this order? This is to help you guys visualize. GnRH, the effects was to increase LH-FSH. Growth hormone releasing hormone stimulates growth hormone. TRH stimulates TSH. PRL stimulated by PRH, so on and so forth, okay? Now question, a little bit of a review because I hinted at this pretty heavily. Somatostatin, does anybody remember what was unique about somatostatin?
It's the only hormone with dual inflammatory effects.
Yeah, nice. Somatostatin is the only hormone that has dual inhibitory effects. Okay. Now, your post-pit, we talked about oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Your thyroid makes T3, T4, and calcitonin. Okay. Now, what hormone stimulates your thyroid? What hormone stimulates your thyroid? Think. That negative feedback loop.
PRH.
TRH stimulates TSH, and TSH stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. Therefore, what stimulates your thyroid?
TSH.
You got it. Okay. Your parathyroid made parathyroid hormone, and that was an antagonist to calcitonin. They work against one another. Pineal gland made melatonin. It's kind of out there by itself. Pancreas made insulin and glucagon. Adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex. First, we talked about the glomerulosa. What was the example mineral corticoid we talked about at the adrenal cortex? What was salty?
Aldosterone.
Aldosterone. Next, we talked about cortisol. Cortisol came from which layer? Starts with an F.
Fasciculata. Lara.
You got it. Fasciculata. Yeah. And then we have the reticularis that makes DHEA. Now your adrenal medulla, that one makes epinephrine. Okay. ACTH comes down here. It stimulates all of that. That, in a nutshell, is everything that we talked about today. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you guys had this as a blank worksheet? Wouldn't it be nice if somebody cared enough, almost cared enough, to actually try to give you resources to learn all of this friggin' crazy information? And if that somebody was so nice that they put it in the modules all the way at the bottom at the worksheets. And if this person was so nice that they uploaded it as a PDF so you could print it as a blank document to practice on. And because this person cares so much, they double-sided it. So you have 2 blanks. Now, for those of you that aren't visual, maybe you like flashcards. Maybe this person took that into consideration and you like flashcards. I got you. I got you. You can write in the names there, the full names, and then the effects sorted by each organ. Twice even. And for posterity's sake, just to make sure that you know that you're doing the right thing, here's the answers. Oh, man. Only if somebody cared so much to do something like that. So I would say, hey, you guys, thanks for hanging in there. I would say screenshot this if you wanted it in color. Take a photo of it, whatever you want to do. But you have this. You have this. Again, if you like flashcards, go for it. I'm a visual type of person. I need to see the connections between things. So that's why I drew it out kind of like this here. Again, if you prefer to like kind of segment it into each box, you have that worksheet there with all of the answers. Okay. So if you like flashcards, I got you. If you don't, I got you. Obviously, I prefer this method much more. Yeah, Lita, it's kind of weird. So what happens is when you guys send me an email, it goes to a different email server. It goes to Outlook, but Canvas yeah, Canvas still shows like a notification. So I'm still answering emails, but it doesn't like take away those notifications there. But also, I wasn't joking. You thought I cared? 93 emails? You think I'm going to respond to people? What do you think I am? Shit. But yeah, so that is hormones. I know, guys, this is tough because there's so much, but try running through this diagram a few times, run through the functions, and you'll be able to break it down piece by piece, and you'll have the big picture in mind. Okay. Again, this is a lot of information because this is going to make up 25% of your final. Now, when we start talking about endocrine pathologies, you need to know the hormone functions. If you know the hormone functions, you can figure out the pathos, because all of the pathos is if you have too much or too little. So take, for example, if someone has too much somatostatin, what would be the effect? If you have somebody who has too much somatostatin, too much SS.
They wouldn't have enough growth hormone or TSH.
Correct. They won't have enough growth hormone and they won't have thyroid stimulating hormone. So what happens if someone doesn't have growth hormone?
They're small.
They're small, they don't grow. What happens if we don't stimulate the thyroid? What's going to happen if we don't stimulate the thyroid?
Decreased metabolism.
Yeah, decreased metabolism, decreased thyroid size. So again, question was too much somatostatin. Hey, guess what? You're going to be a midget with no thyroid. You see what I'm saying is if you understand the phys and you understand the action, you can easily figure out if you have too much, too little, what the effects are. Okay. So that's going to be it for today's lecture. So good job hanging in there, guys. I know it was a lot. Okay. But seriously, that packet there, I did kind of put that together because I do not expect you guys to just pick up all of the hormones just in here talking, like hearing me talk. So hopefully this helps you guys organize this kind of stuff in your head, or at least see the big picture here. Yeah, let me know if you guys have questions while you're studying for renal exams on Monday. When it comes to renal, same thing. Your physiology, 3 steps: filtration, reabsorption, secretion. Filtration, you have pressures. Reabsorption, you have active versus passive transport. Secretion, it's just secretion. Okay. Then for your pathos, 4 categories. You got your obstructions, upper and lower. For your infections, bladder or kidneys. I guess kidneys or bladder. For glomerulonephritis, you have acute versus chronic. For failure, you have acute versus chronic. Okay, so I would say try to organize your stuff into those large diagrams first before diving into the details, because it can be a bit much. Okay. Any questions for me? Preponderances? All good? All right.